Okay, good morning, class. So please stand as we start our class with a prayer. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. To our most gracious and heavenly Father, Lord God, please guide us always and please shower us knowledge as we discuss our topic for today. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Okay, class, please sit down and please pay attention because I will going to check your attendance. Okay, so as say present as I call your name. Yes. Okay, so it's great to know that all of you are present for today. So how's your day, class? Okay, it's nice to hear. But before we proceed to our lesson proper, let's have review first our topic that we discussed last meeting. Okay, who can give the topic that we discussed last meeting? Yes, Miss Barcelona. Very good. Last meeting, we discussed about the nature and the process of communication. Now, who can enumerate the three properties or the nature of communication? Yes, Miss Rodriguez. Okay, very good. So, how about the different elements of communication? Yes, Miss Santiago? Okay, very good. And how about the different stages of communication process? Yes, Miss De La Cruz. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so communication is the transfer of information and ideas from person to another person. So also we have elements of communication. So there are 8 elements of communication. So first is the sender. So the sender is the one who initiates the conversation. And then the second one is the receiver or the recipient of the information. And also we have the third one is the message or the information that being created by the sender. So the fourth one of elements of communication is the channel or the medium. It is known as the carrier of the message. And then the fifth one is the feedback or the receiver response to the message that being sent by our sender. So the sixth one is encoding. So the senders is the process of converting ideas into understandable message. So the seventh one is the decoding or the process where the receiver interprets the message that being sent by our sender. So the eighth one is the noise or known as the communication barriers. Okay, very good. So before we start our lesson proper, I want you all to please now look at the presentation that I've been project on our board. So we will have our short group activities. So our group activities is what we call pass by me. So you may now go to your group. Okay, so are you ready? Okay, very good. So each group should have the first sender and the final receiver. So the members of each group then should fall into a straight line facing the back part of the room. So the final receiver should stand in the front of the line while the first sender should stand at the end of the line facing the next member who has his back to him on cue. The second member will turn his back to face the first sender. So to hear the message or watch the action being sent by the latter. So after getting the message or the action, the first sender will turn his back towards the next member and face that chalkboard. So the second member will turn his back also to the first sender and face the third member, repeating the message or action being sent by the first receiver, who will then shout to the class the message or demonstrate the action and tell what the meaning of the action. So the first group who will finish the relay and get the correct answer will win the game. So class, you should be ready yourself. Okay, so you may now take or you may now go to your group so that we can identify which is the group 1, the group 2, the group 3, and the group 4. So the group 1 will stand here, and then the group 2, group 3, and then the group 4. Okay, so very good. So our winner for our game is group 1. Okay, you may now go back to your seat. Okay, very good. Okay, so before we proceed to our lesson, let me ask you some questions or what you have learned to our game. So number 1, how did you find the game relaying the message through words and actions? Okay, do not answer in chorus. Please raise your hands. Okay, Miss Baliao. Okay, very good. Number 2, on what particular part in the relay did you find hard and why? Okay, Miss Rodriguez. Okay, thank you, Miss Rodriguez. So number 3, which do you think is the best way to send message through spoken words or actions? Why? Yes, Miss Balislawan. Okay, for the last question. If you will be asked to play the same game, only with a different message, how would you do it to ensure the effective transfer of accurate message? Yes, Miss Tomas. Okay, very good. Good job, everyone. Okay. So I want you to face our board here. So I'm gonna show it to you. Okay, very good. So now let's proceed to our lesson proper. So I want you to look at the screen. So I have here some pictures. So what comes into your mind when you see these pictures? Any idea? Yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, very good. So, how about the others? Yes, Miss Sanchez. Okay. So, as what Miss Sanchez and Mr. Velasco said, our pictures is related to communication. So we reviewed earlier that we discussed last meeting that communication is very important in our life because communication is the way how we communicate to others. So now we are going to discuss the verbal and the non-verbal communication. Okay. Okay, so do you have any idea about verbal and non-verbal communication? Okay, so who can give the idea about the verbal communication? Yes, Miss Franco. Okay, very good. So how about the non-verbal communication? Okay, Miss Magno. Okay, very good. So, first, thank you. Okay, you may now sit down. Okay, so today we're going to discuss the verbal and the non-verbal communication. Okay, so first, we have the verbal communication. So, who can read? Yes, Mr. Lasala, please read. Okay, very good. So, when we say verbal communication, so it is a communication happens through verbally, vocally, or through written words which express or convey message to other. So verbal communication is the use of language to transfer information through speaking or sign language. So it is the one of the most common types often used during presentation, video references, or meetings. And also this, inside the classroom, we also use the verbal communication. So verbal communication is important because it is efficient. It can be helpful to support verbal communication with both non-verbal and written communication. So, okay, who can give an example of verbal communication? Yes, Ms. Tugbang. Okay, very good. Okay, so next we're going to discuss about the qualities of good verbal communication. Okay, so number one, we have vivid. So what comes into your mind when you hear the word vivid? Yes, Miss Sanchez. Okay, very good. So vivid is the uses of lifelike words. Okay, so the next qualities of good verbal communication is enthusiastic. So enthusiastic is the use of words that manifest your enthusiasm or eagerness. So say for example, you will going to have or to deliver your speech. Okay, so you can use there different words that can boost your enthusiasm or eagerness. So the next example or the next qualities of good verbal communication is relevant. So relevant is the use only those words that are necessary. Say for example, I will going to give you an activity. So I will going to give you a relevant information on how you perform the said activity. Okay, next, we have the brief. So brief are the use of words instead of phrases and clause. So the next one is, conversational. So conversational is the use or you can use colloquial words and avoid highfalutin words. So for example, another example is when you deliver your speech, you do not allow to use highfalutin words because your listeners could not easily understand the message you are going to convey to them. So you are advised to use only some colloquial words or the words that can easily understand by your listener. Okay. So the next good qualities of verbal communication is understandable. So it's almost the same in the conversational because in understandable, you are going to use simple words. Okay, so you're going to use simple words so that your listeners could easily understand the message you are going to convey. Okay, next. Okay, we also have the moderate in speed. So moderate in speed is you're going to speak neither too fast nor too slow. You are advised and while you're delivering your speech, you need to say it ng ina ba lang di tamaan ka dasig or hindi tamaan ka hinay, ang insakto-sakto lang. So that your listeners could understand it clearly. Okay, so the next good qualities of verbal communication is novel. So what comes into your mind when you hear the word novel? Oh, I'm not referring to a novel that you read, but because we are referring to a novel that use new words or neologism and avoid archaic or obsolete ones. So when we say novel, you are advised if you are a good verbal communicator someday, you are advised to use new words or inalang mga words nga bago lang naga uso. Say for example, when we say mga millennial words or mga generation senior words. Kung ang imo nga audience or ang imo nga listeners is nasa generation C man. Okay, so we're gonna discuss it further later. So next we have interesting. So it is the use of words that arouse the listeners or the reader's interest. So also, as a good verbal communicator, you are also advised to boost the interest of your listeners. Okay. So, because, say for example, you're going to deliver your speech, may mga aragi na yung nagkakatak-an or nagkakatuyo. So, you as a good communicator, you are going to use interesting words so that your listeners will boost their interest. Okay, very good. Okay, so the next one is the context or the contextual. Sorry. Okay, so the contextual is the idea that can be fully understood by your listeners. Okay, so say for example again, nag-deliver naman ikaw sa iyong speech. You as a good verbal communicator, ikaw dapat magamit ka sa mga words or as what I have said earlier that you are not allowed to use highfalutin words. So in contextual, you are going to use words that can be fully understood or easily understand by your listeners. Okay, so the next one is the audience oriented. Okay, so as what I've said earlier, if you're going to discuss a topic or a speech while using the novel, as what I have said, you are going to, what do you call this one? You are going to consider your listeners. You are advised to be audience-oriented. Okay, so when we say audience-oriented, you are going to consider your audience if there are some example, there are all doctors, they are all teachers. You are not allowed, or it is a very wrong if you, not totally wrong, but it is advised that if you have a listener or you have to speak in front of a teacher, your topic must be related to them. Say for example, if you're going to share or you're going to discuss the topic and your listeners are all doctors, so you're going to discuss them about medical fields. You are not allowed to discuss it in front of the oldies or old one because they don't understand your message. Okay. So the next one is tactful. Okay. So the tactful is avoid words that serves to inform. For example, you are appear to open up or open your communicating, or you should be open to your communication. Okay. So the next one is informative. So it is the use of words that serves to inform. So if you are a good communicator, say for example, okay, by the way, who can give the example of the good qualities of verbal communication or the person who can be an example of informative? Okay. Yes, Miss Travis. Okay, very good. Okay, as what Ms. Chavez said, the one example of informative is our broadcaster. So they are broadcasting news to inform our listeners or our viewers. Okay, very good. Next, we have organize. Okay, so organize is the arrange of words in their proper sequence. Okay, so example again, if you are going to deliver again your speech, you are advised to be aware on the sequence of your speech. So say for example, you are going to start the introduction and then the body and then the conclusion. You are not allowed to start it with your ending. You are not allowed to ask some questions or or anything you wanted to ask if you don't have to if you don't already discuss the topic. Okay. So the last good verbal communication or the good qualities of verbal communication is the nonsense. Okay, so the nonsense is the use of words that have sense. Okay, very good. You don't have to you don't need to use nonsense words in communicating. Say for example, you are going to deliver your campaign speech in upcoming election. So dapat, kaya kita sa formal, you are going to deliver the formal speech man and you are going to discuss them your campaign or your platforms so that or what do you call this one? They can easily understand or they can easily understand your platform. Okay, so now who can enumerate the good qualities of verbal communication? Okay, yes, Miss Tunay. Okay, very good. Oh, seems like you understand all the good qualities of verbal communication. Okay, now let's move on to verbal communication skills. Okay, so who can read the first verbal communication skills? Okay, yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, very good. So the first verbal communication skills is the ask questions. Okay, so ask questions is a use of open-ended questions. Say for example, you are going to discuss or you are going to have a discussion about a certain topic. And then you can use or you can ask open-ended questions. So one example of open-ended questions is how do you plan for your future? Or should we say what is your dream after 5 years? Or what do you look for yourself? Or something like that. Okay, so the next verbal communication skills is the probe. So who can read the definition of probe? Yes, Miss De La Cruz. Okay. So, probe is a continuous specific discussion using follow-up questions. For example, like asking, tell me more about or please explain. Or non-verbal signals like nodding or remaining silent or maintaining your eye contact. Okay, so always remember that when we say probe, you will going to put into your mind the follow-up questions. Okay, next we have paraphrase. Okay, who can read on the board? Yes, Mr. Magno. Okay, so the paraphrase is you're going to restrain in your own words. Okay, very good. Say for example, you are given a story to discuss it or you are going to, or your teacher had or given you a prose or a topic to discuss it in front of the class. So you as a student to perform or to apply your good verbal communication skills, you are going to summarize the topic so that you can easily address it or explain it in front of your classmates. Okay. So the next one is the redirect questions and comments. Okay, who can read on the board? Yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, thank you. So when we say redirect questions and comments, it is having on interactions. Okay, example. Me as your teacher, I will going to discuss here in front of you a certain topic. And then after the discussion, or during the discussion, I will ask you some questions so that I can know if you are listening well. So in asking questions, we can build an interactions. So as a good communications, or it is considered as a communication or the nonverbal communication skills. Okay, so the next one we have reference back. Okay, so who can read the meaning of reference back? Yes, Mr. Magno. Okay, so when we say reference back, it is the review of last discussion to build each other ideas. Okay, so what we did earlier before we start our lesson proper, I or me as a teacher asked each students or asked my class if you already remember the discussion that the topic that we discussed earlier. So that is a reference back or one of the skills of a good verbal communicators. Okay, so next is the encourage convergent views. Okay, so who can read again? Yes, Miss Sanchez. Okay, thank you. So the encourage divergent views as they expand the possibilities for problem solving or new ideas. Okay, say for example, you are given a group discussions. Okay, so each member would contribute her or his or her ideas to our leader so that they can share or they can brainstorm. Okay, they can brainstorm the ideas. Okay, so but before we forgot the round robin discussion. Okay, sorry, I forget. So the round robin discussion have one person speak after another in some defined order to include everyone with option to be passed. Okay. So the example of round robin discussion is when we are going to elect our class presidents in our classroom. So okay. So di ba may ara nga after we nominate our classmates for the class presidents, the nominators or the your teacher or your past president will ask if you are going to agree if we are going to close our nominations for president. So some of your classmates will said, I second the motion. So that is the example of round robin discussions. You are giving one another to express his ideas or to say pass or to agree or to disagree on your certain topic. Okay, so now let's move on to the shift perspective. Okay, who can read? Okay, yes, Mr. Lilam. Okay, very good. So when we say the shift perspective, it is considered an issue or the point of view. Example. So one example or the common example of the shift perspective is the advantages and the disadvantages. So you are considering the other sides. So you both consider the disadvantages or you're going to consider the disadvantages. Okay. So the next one is the summarize. Okay, you can read the meaning of summarize. Okay, yes, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, so summarize is a brief and concise review about the series of comments on an issue, allowing both parties to review and agree on what has been said prior to moving to the next discussion or topic. Say for example, your teacher is discussing about the different types of speech context. So after the discussion and after your teachers give you an assessment, your teacher asked you if you learned something or did you learn about this discussion. So your teacher is, if you said no, your teacher is going to summarize all the topic or all the main points in the topic of types of speech context. That is an example of summarize. Also, we have another example. You are given a story, and then your teacher asks you to report it or to say your reaction about the story or to read the summarize of the story. So that is a good example of verbal communication skills. You can summarize a story in front of, or you can summarize and as well you can report the story in front of your classmates. Okay. So the last communication skills, verbal communication skills is the bridge. So when we say the bridge, it is a few words about review briefly what just discussed or occurred information about what the group will do or what will happen next. Okay, so for short, the example of brief is the evaluation. Okay. Okay, class. So now, who can give one example of verbal communication skills? Yes, Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, thank you. How about another one? Who can give another examples of verbal communication skills? Yes, Miss Chavez. Very good. How about who can enumerate all the examples of verbal communication skills? Okay, yes, Miss Cabellion. Okay, thank you. So now let's proceed to our non-verbal communication. Okay, any idea? Who can give you any idea about verbal communication? Okay, yes, Mr. Toledo. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what is non-verbal communication? Okay, do you see some pictures? Yes. Anyway, who can give any idea about the pictures on the screen that I've flashed? Okay. Yes, Mr. Noblisa. Okay, very good. So these pictures is an examples of non-verbal communication. Okay, so what is non-verbal communication? So non-verbal communication does not make or use any words. So message is communicated by the use of hands, feet, head, and other parts of the body. Okay, so similar to the sign language employed by the mute to communicate their thoughts and feelings to the people they deal with. Okay, as what you can see on our board or on our pictures, there are some examples of sign language. Okay, do you familiar in different sign language? Okay, very good. So sign language is considered as one example of non-verbal communication. Very good. So it is studied in the following field of linguistics. So the sign language is the very common examples of non-verbal communication. So I have here some studied in following field of linguistics. So first, you can read number 1. Okay, thank you. So our first topic is the chronamics, or the study of time element in communication. Very good. So next is can you read number 2? Okay, yes, Mr. Lilam again. Okay, haptics. So when we say haptics, it is the study of touch element in communication, or the way we touch. Okay, one example is tapping your shoulders, hugging your friends, Okay. So next is the oculetics. Or oculetics is the study of the eye contact in communication. Oh, very good. So example is you're going to discuss or you're going to deliver your speech. You are advised to maintain your eye contact to your listeners so that they can feel your interactions or your emotions to your speech that you are going to deliver to your audience. Okay, so next is the prosemics. Okay, so we can read the meaning of prosemic. Yes, Miss Sanchez. Okay, very good. So prosemics is the study of proximity between the parties to a communication. Very good. So basically, it talks about our senses. So it talks about the sense of our time, touch, see, and our okay. So next we have our nonverbal communication skills that involve the use of the body parts as well as the use of the voice and space. Okay, because nonverbal communication it somehow talks about our always talk. Pause, my God, please said. The next nonverbal communication skills is the body movement and posture. Okay, who can read the meaning of body movements and posture? Yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, very good. So, body movements and posture is the way one moves and carries himself or one that indicates his personality. More often than not, people judge an individual the way he stands, sits, walks, and holds his head. Others are affected by one's posture, bearing stance, and suitable movements. Okay. So when we say body movements and posture, it talks about how you stand or how do you handle your physical self. Say for example, you are going to read or you're going to deliver your speech or your impromptu speech. You are allowed to stand straight and maintain your posture. Okay, so that is an example of nonverbal communication skills. So next, we have a gesture. Okay, who can read the meaning of gestures? Yes, Miss De La Cruz. Okay, thank you. So gestures is like one's face, his head, and hands can express a variety of emotions. Moreover, a communicator can make use of his head and hands to convey ideas and emotions. Say for example, there are people that when they are talking or they are expressing their ideas, they are using hand gestures like this, like this. Oh, that is an example of gestures. Okay. So next is the eye contact. Okay, who can read the eye contact? Yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, so eye contact, the eyes are very useful in maintaining a good communication flow and determining the process from the receiver. So the kind of eye contact displayed by a communicator is a manifestation of his interest, attention, affection, attraction, indifference, and hostility. Okay, so the eye contact is the very important or it is one example of the nonverbal communication skill because you as a communicator, if you do the eye contact during you or when you are delivering your speech, you can show your interest and emotions to your listeners. Okay. Also, when you're doing the eye contact, you can avoid distractions. Okay, very good. So the next nonverbal communication skills is touch. Okay, who can read the meaning of touch? Yes, Miss Tunay. Okay, very good. So the touch can communicate a number of things. A smack or a passionate kiss, A simple embrace or tight hug, a slap on the face or on the back, a tap on the shoulder, a wink or a firm handshake, and a lot more have meaningful messages. Also, even touch can communicate, okay? Example, the way you tap the shoulders of your friends, it is an example of touch when you are going to comfort him or you're going to mock him. That is an example of nonverbal communication skills. Okay, so the next one is, okay, the space. Okay, who can read the space? Yes, Mr. Velasco again. Okay, thank you. So the space is the physical space between interlocutors is also important in oral communication since it signals intimacy, affection, aggression, dominance, and etc. It is dependent on the culture, the situation, and the closeness of the relationship. The closer the relationship between the interlocutors, the smaller the space between them. So the formal the situation, the bigger the space between the interlocutors. So when we say the space, it talks about the interactions or your how do you call this one? Or your relation to your speakers. Okay. So it is said here that the closer the relationship between the speakers, the smaller the space between your listeners or your readers. Okay, so the more the formal the situation, the bigger the space between the speaker. Okay, so the last one is voice. Okay, are you familiar with this? Okay, very good. So who can read the meaning of voice? Yes, Mr. Noblisa. Okay, so when we say voice in a communication, not only the words but also the manner of saying these words matters. Okay, therefore, timing, pacing, intonation, and inflection of the voice are so important as the message. Some people pay attention to these things that a number of speakers tend to ignore. One's voice can indicate affection, confidence, sarcasm, and even anger. Okay. So when we say voice, di ba, sa tingog pa lang sa tingog pa lang mabalaan na kung akid ang isa katawo or hindi. Sa tingog pa lang mabalaan kung nalipay ang isa katawo o kung nasubuan. Okay. So, to further summary all the topic that we discussed, so the verbal communication is the communication that uses words to express your ideas and emotions towards person to another person. So when we say non-verbal communication, it is mostly using the sign language or there is no words used in communicating. Okay, so who can again repeat the meaning or who can share the ideas in your own words about the different verbal and the non-verbal communication? Yes, Ms. Cabellion. Okay, thank you. Very good. So again, who can give one examples of the good qualities of verbal communication and give it another examples? Yes, Mr. Dilaw. Okay, very good. So how about the good verbal communication skills? Who can give two? Yes, Ms. De La Cruz. Okay, thank you. So how about we move on to nonverbal communication? So who can give the good qualities of nonverbal communication? Okay. Okay, yes. Thank you. So how about the non-verbal communication skills? Who can give two and give an example from each. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, Mr. Nubisa. Sorry for that. Okay, thank you. So now, let's move on to our... Oh, by the way, did you understand it well? Okay, do you understand what is verbal communication? Okay, very good. So how about you understand what is nonverbal communication? Did you understand it well? Okay, very good. So now let's proceed to our activity. Okay, so I have here on the board. So please, who can read the instruction? Yes, Mr. Lubisa, please read the instruction. Okay, very good. So, you are going to classify the following communication activities into oral, written, and both oral and written. So, I want you to answer it on a sheet of paper and then pass it to the monitor at the center. And then the monitor will pass the paper in the front and the person in the front will going to give the papers. Okay, you have... wait. Sorry, I don't have much anyway. You will be given 5 minutes to answer the set activities. Okay? Did you already finish it? How about this one? This row. Did you finish your activities? Okay, so you may pass it to your monitor. Okay, so before I will going to give you the assignments, we will going to have another activities here. So I have here some pictures. So you will going to identify this picture if this is a non-verbal or verbal communication. So the first picture is, okay, how about this picture? Yes, Mr. Lilam again. Okay, this is a verbal communication. Very good. How about the next picture? Yes, Miss Camillion. Okay, it is a verbal communication. It shows the, or what do you call this one? Intimate talking. Okay. Next. Okay, you can answer this one. Yes, Miss Tunay. Okay, this is an example of non-verbal communication. Very good. How about this one? Okay, who can answer it? Yes, Miss Chavez. Okay, so this is an example of verbal communication. How about this one? Yes, Miss De La Cruz. Okay, non-verbal communication. How about this one? Okay, who can answer it? Yes, Mr. Velasco. Okay, non-verbal communication. It is a child showing what do you call this one? Sign language. Very good. How about this one? What do you call this one? Yes, Miss De La Cruz. Okay, non-verbal communication. How about the last one? Yes, Mr. Magno. Okay, non-verbal communication. Okay. So this time, I will going to give you your assignment. So, who can read the direction on the board? Yes, Miss Cabellion, please read. Okay, thank you. So, your assignment, in this lesson, Okay, so for your assignment, you have learned about the verbal and the nonverbal forms of communication in a light of the celebration of the National Independence Day this week. I want you to list down all the possible ways, separate verbal from nonverbal, or you can show your respect, loyalty, and love to your country. Okay, so this is your assignment. You will going to pass your assignment next meeting. Okay, class? Okay. Some more questions? Clarifications? Okay, so without further to do, this will end our discussion. So thank you, class, and good morning once again. So before you leave, kindly pick a piece of paper under your chairs, and please arrange your chair properly before you leave. Okay. So goodbye, class. Okay. Don't forget to submit your assignment next meeting. Okay.